Be seated. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our heart be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So I could preach a sermon on this gospel lesson for today, in which I ask the question, what kind of soil are you? Are you the pretty soil, the good soil, where you produce 30 times the amount of hope and power and beauty and forgiveness and love that God has given to you, or that has been given to you by God through other people? Are you a good soil? Or are we maybe the soil on the path where we've been trodden down and beat down a little bit over many years, and so we're kind of cynical, and we got a hard shell around us, and we're not going to be taken in by anybody, really, and we're kind of set in our ideas. We know what we think, and you're not going to change my mind. Or maybe we have rocks in our soil. Maybe in our souls we have addictions, or resentments, or fear, or despair. And we're all for God's hope and power and beauty and forgiveness and love. It's like mom and apple pie. Yeah, sure. But when those roots start trickling down to that hard stuff, oh man, like we gotta face our fears. Like, we got to let go of some of that resentment. Ooh. We got to deal with our despair. That hurts. I mean, when hope touches despair, and we've been in despair for a while, that hurts. I don't know. And then, on top of it all, we're aware, we kind of start getting a feeling after a while that some people don't like what Jesus is saying. And if we actually start doing things that Jesus wants us to do, we might get passed up for a promotion in our job. Or our friends at school might not like us so much anymore. Oh, are we rocky soil? Or are we weedy soil? We have many worries and concerns. How are we going to put food on the table next week? How are we going to help our family to get along? And this person at work is driving us nuts, and this kid at school is just a real jerk. And not only that, but that Porsche over there in that sports car parking lot, ooh, it's a pretty sports car. It's very pretty. Just think of all the excitement, all the enjoyment, all the speed you can get out of that Porsche. Yes, it's going to break your bank account, and you can't give any money to help anybody else in the world if you get that sports car, but oh, it's so pretty. My goodness. Yes. Are we the weeds? What kind of soil are you? I could preach a sermon about that, but I'm not going to today. Nope. Not going to do it. Because, quite frankly, I don't think Jesus is just talking about soil. I don't think Jesus is just talking about us. This is a parable, okay? A parable of Jesus's. And Jesus' parables talk about the realm of God, what God is like. And Jesus' parables pretty consistently turn our understanding of the world inside up and our perspective on ourselves and each other upside down. That's what a parable does. So please take note of who Jesus is talking to in the gospel lesson for today. It's this big old pile of crowds. So many crowds that he has to get in a boat and go out on a lake, see? Because if you've ever been on a lake, you can hear people talking from like 100 yards away because the sound carries over a lake. It's a natural public address system. So Jesus is out up on this lake. He's talking to all these everyday common people just like you and me. And if you were a common person just like you and me back in Jesus' day, in the first century Palestine, you would have been a farmer. Everybody farmed in those days. And you would have been a very serious farmer, and you would have known what you were doing because you were a subsistence farmer. That meant you ate what you grew. And if you didn't grow anything, you didn't eat. If you didn't get a good crop, you died. Okay? So farming is a big deal in Jesus' day, and everybody needed to know what they were doing if they were farming. And this person who is a farmer who is sowing the seed, this person is insane. This person is crazy. This person is throwing this precious, precious seed willy-nilly on the path, on rocky soil, on the weeds. Do you ever plant anything on a path? Who gardens here? Anybody garden here? Have you ever tried to plant seeds on tamped down path soil? Doesn't work. Nobody plants seeds in rocky soil. They won't grow. You don't plant seeds in weedy soil. It's crazy. This is what God is like. Wandering everywhere, every which way, throwing God's hope and God's power and God's beauty and God's forgiveness and God's love willy-nilly in all directions. This God is a fool. This God is insane. This God is ridiculously, preposterously, embarrassingly, over the top, inappropriately abundant. That's what this parable is about. A crazy God. And this God pours this beauty out on you and me because we are all these different kinds of soil. At any given moment, on any day, we're going to be one of those kinds of soil. Not only that, God asks us to do the same. To be ridiculously, preposterously, insanely, embarrassingly, inappropriately, over the top, abundant. Now, we are human beings. We're not God. We're not infinite. We do not have infinite amounts of hope and power and beauty and forgiveness and love. And we might change the soil. You know, Jesus never says the soil can't change. You know, you might want to take some of that hard path, some of that dead set ideas, and listen to those ideas, and we might be able to listen and understand each other. Don't get excited. Don't worry. We're not going to try to change your mind. Jesus might change your mind. But we might understand each other, and from there we can grow. We can take the rocks out of the soil. Do you ever drive by a cornfield or a soybean field and you see a big pile of rocks on the edge of the field, right? And that pile of rocks comes from the farmers who have taken the rocks out of that field and put them in a pile on the other edge. Okay? That's what we can do. And we may not be able to wave a magic wand and make an addiction go away. Okay? But we can put that addiction in its proper place so it doesn't control your life. We can be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or other groups. We can work together so that that addiction is still there and you still struggle with it every day, but it's over there. It doesn't control you. It's not God. We can take our fears and our resentments, and we can work together and we can pray together so that, yes, a bad thing has happened to you, or a bad thing might happen to you, and that's real. That doesn't go away, but we can put it in its place on the edge of the field so it doesn't govern your life. And instead, God's hope can govern your life. We can take even despair. We can't make it go away, but we can put it in its place. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. And while feelings are real and powerful and holy and important, they are not always reality. And even when we feel horrible, We can believe that there's hope. Even if we feel like there's no hope, we can trust the God of hope. Put that rock on the edge of the field so it doesn't have quite so much of a stranglehold on our soul. We can change the soil. And we can be a part of what God does in the world. Remember, Jesus concludes his parable with this ridiculous, preposterous, embarrassingly, inappropriately overabundant claim. 30 times the amount of grain you put in the soil, 60 times, 100 times in Jesus' day. That was ridiculous. That was completely unrealistic, and yet that's what Jesus says. So, this week, Vacation Bible School, we are going to talk about what your church is doing in combination, in partnership with other churches in various places. For example, there's a kid in a country called Eswatini in southern Africa, and he goes to church, and he goes to school, and he can't learn, he can't concentrate because he doesn't have enough to eat. He's too hungry to focus. And your church and the money you put in the plate and the attitude you take towards God's work in the world and the prayers that you say go to him and to our work with him, and they made a garden. And his community and his family grow this garden, and he's got more food so that he can focus in school. We got people with mental conditions in Pakistan that we're working with. We're going to talk about them. We got folks in Palestine who are going through grief. We'll talk about them. We got folks in Bangladesh you can't see who are doing a business, making things out of rope and making a living that way, and your church is involved. In St. Paul, we have a community garden with people from the Democratic Republic of Congo who are refugees, and they work in the garden and they feel like they are at home. In our congregation, we share our kitchen with the Hope Bus. And it's hard because anytime you share your space, it's really hard. It's a pain to do it. I will say this. And sometimes, be quite frank, in negotiating these things, I need a bit of a tranquilizer. But they make 1,200 meals a week to go to hungry people in this city. And we need to work on issues and make sure things are clean and all of that. And we are. It's not easy, but it is fruit. It is grain. 20 feet that way is Friends School. It provides a safe and disciplined place for kids who have special needs and kids who what we call neurotypical. That is regular kids. If there is such a thing as a regular kid, I don't know. To learn together. And so they've got folks with Down syndrome. They've got folks on the Asperger's spectrum. They've got folks with behavioral disorders. And because of you, and because you're willing to put up with the pain it takes to share space, they have a safe space. And that says something about who Jesus is. And coming up, people have made proposals about our men's group working on what it means to be a man these days and not be the dictator of your house, but be a man who shares power. What does it mean to be masculine and caring at the same time? And we've had a proposal from folks who wish to have a group who talk about violence. And they've seen violence and want to think and pray together about those experiences. So this is not just something we're doing now. We still have a future of growing. In other words, even though we are hard as a path, even though we got rocks inside of us, even though we got weeds growing all around, nevertheless, God has made you ridiculously, preposterously, embarrassingly, over the top, inappropriately abundant. Thanks be to God.